is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. First, the headlines. Malian army trapped in tunnel 72 hours after collapse. Officials accuse Russia for influx of illegal migrants. Suspect claims conspiracy theories made him attack Pelosi's husband. Jury hears closing argument of alleged mother of Muslims. Thank you for staying with us in international news today. Here is our bulletin full. United Nations says it will resume humanitarian supplies. United Nations has said it will resume delivering humanitarian supplies and evacuating staff in Niger after the country's ruling junta lifted domestic flight restrictions. The National Aviation Authorities in Niger have informed the United Nations Humanitarian Air Service that flight restrictions are now lifted for domestic operations and that services can resume as of tomorrow. United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said this on Tuesday. It said that the resumption of domestic flight operations will facilitate the monthly delivery of nearly 2.5 metric tons of medical supply aid, as well as critical medical and security evacuations for humanitarian. The UN agency, however, said it expects challenges fueling its aircraft. The UN in August said it would continue delivering aid in the West African country after its leader, President Mohamed Bazoum, was overthrown in a coup in August. However, Western powers, including France, the United States, and the European Union, have cut off aid to the country due to the July coup. According to the UN, roughly 4.3 million Nigerians depend on humanitarian aid. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has urged African and Caribbean leaders to unite in demanding reparations for historical injustices committed during slavery and colonialism, terming the action a valid demand for justice. He said that Africa was owed reparations by countries that participated in slavery, as the practice had stifled Africa's progress. No amount of money can restore the damage caused by transatlantic slave trade and its consequences. But surely, this is a matter that the world must confront and can no longer ignore, Mr. Akufo added on Tuesday at an ongoing reparations conference in Ghana's capital, Accra, and attended by leaders from African and Caribbean nations. The conference seeks to build a united front and formulate a plan to guide African countries and the diaspora in pursuing reparations. Had been vocal in pushing for apologies and reparations for countries that participated in slavery and colonialism. In September, he told the United Nations General Assembly that no amount of money would ever make up for the horrors, but it would make the point that evil was perpetrated. Mali's army has seized Kidal, a key town in the country's north that the ethnic Tuareg rebels have held for nearly a decade. Kidal has been a bastion for the Tuareg, one of the rebel groups at the center of the country's long-running political and security crisis. The army, reportedly backed by Wagner Group mercenaries, has battled for Kidal for the past 3 days. The head of the country's junta said the mission is not complete. However, Colonel Assimi Goita, Mali's interim president, said in a post on X his objective was to ensure the country's territorial integrity. The army has urged civilians in Kidal to remain calm. The alliance, known as the Permanent Strategy Framework, which is mostly formed of Tuareg armed groups, said that it had left Kidal for strategic reasons, the press says. The fight continues, it added. On Monday, the Malian army said that its advance to Kidal had only been opposed by a series of low-intensity skirmishes from what it described as the alliance of terrorist armed groups. The central government in Mali lost control of much of the not more than a decade ago following a Tuareg rebellion, which was initially sparked by a demand for a separate country. The country's security was then further complicated by the involvement of Islamist militants. The resulting instability has led to 3 coups since 2012. Under an agreement signed in 2015, the largely Tuareg separatists were to be integrated into the army, and the control of Kidal handed over to the Malian government. Neither item was implemented. From 2013, French troops backed the Malian government in its fight against the Islamist militants, but their failure to solve the problem has led to a rejection of their help by the current military leadership, with the last French soldiers leaving in 2022. The junta has since turned the Russian mercenary group Wagner for assistance, but its fighters' presence has never been formally acknowledged by the authorities. The United Nations peacekeeping mission is also pulling out of Mali, with the rebels and Islamist fighters trying to seize the vacated bases. Uganda's parliament on Tuesday passed a bill allowing the state-owned oil company Uganda National Oil Company to source and supply oil to the domestic market. If approved by President Yoweri Museveni, the bill will end the country's decades-long practice of relying on Kenyan companies for oil imports. MPs who supported the bill said it will reduce fuel costs by cutting out middlemen and fuel cartels that arbitrarily influence fuel pricing. Uganda's Energy Minister Ruth Nankabua recently said the country needed to stop importing oil through Kenyan companies as it exposed Uganda to occasional supply vulnerabilities, where Uganda oil marketing companies were considered secondary whenever there were supply disruptions. Uganda, a landlocked country, imports more than 90% of its fuel through Kenya's Mombasa port and the remainder through Tanzania's Dar es Salaam ports, according to Ms. Nankabua. The country is also seeking to shift more of its oil transportation via Tanzania. South Sudan Salva Kiir has fired the police chief amid a crackdown on security officials following reports of an attempted coup against him. A decree by the president read on state TV on Tuesday night said Lieutenant General Majak Akek Malok had been replaced by Lieutenant General Atem Marobia. Security officials downplayed the coup rumors that emerged on 11 November as Mr. Kiir was on an official visit to Riyadh for the inaugural Saudi Africa Summit. A day later, Sudan's Post website reported the arrest of 27 military and intelligence officials. Long delayed security reforms are underway in the fractured East African nation that is preparing to hold its first election since attaining independence in 2011. Separately, the United Nations Security Council has extended the mandate of the peacekeeping force in the contested RBA region claimed by South Sudan and Sudan for another year. Thousands of farmers from the Bure area in Ethiopia's Amhara region have crossed into the neighboring region of Oromia after fresh attacks have claimed dozens of lives, according to residents. They said two villages, Bako Tabo and Sontoma, were mainly targeted. A farmer who fled the area told the press, Fano members asked us to join them, but we said no. Then they attacked us. Residents have said it's ethnically motivated. They have blamed the members of Fano militia, a group of fighting government troops in the volatile northwestern Amhara, Ethiopia's second most populous region, but it's not clear how many have been killed from the attacks that lasted for days. We were unable to bury dead bodies. I don't know the fate of elders who we left behind. A local official in the Amuru area said so far 3,000 displaced people have taken shelter in schools, but that numbers are increasing. Ethiopia's Human Rights Commission says it is going to investigate the attack. Earlier today, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed called for armed groups to lay down their arms as his administration continues to battle armed insurgency in different parts of the country. Ethiopian Airlines has ordered more Boeing 737-8 MAX planes almost 5 years after a fatal crash near Addis Ababa involving the same model, which was then grounded. We believe we have checked and confirmed that the design defect of that aircraft has been fully corrected by Boeing. Ethiopian Airlines CEO Mesfin Tasiu said on Tuesday, we have renewed our confidence in that aircraft. In total, the airline has ordered more than 67 Boeing planes. The order includes a mix of models. Aviation website Simple Flying reports that Ethiopian Airlines order was announced at the Dubai Air Show 2023, where Boeing has so far dominated its rival Airbus. The Hamas government media office has issued a statement calling Israel's raid on Gaza Al-Shifa Hospital a war crime, a moral crime, and a crime against humanity. It said 9,000 patients, medical Staff and displaced civilians were at the hospital when the raid happened under the cover of night. In a video on X, formerly Twitter, by the Palestinian Information Center, Hamas leader Izzat al-Rishq said Israel attacked a civilian facility, not a military installation. In an earlier statement, Hamas said it was holding Washington and U.S. President Joe Biden responsible for the raid. Both Israel and the U.S. claimed that Hamas, a proscribed terror group in the U.S., UK, and EU, has a command base under Al-Shifa, which Hamas denies. The Al-Shifa hospital complex may be the beating heart of Hamas, Israel Defense Force spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner said. Our goal is to seek out Hamas wherever they are hiding, and the hospital compound is a central hub of their operations, perhaps even the beating heart and maybe even a center of gravity. He told the press in an interview shortly after the IDF began its military operation inside Al-Shifa. We've been trying to evacuate the hospital. We've bought fuel for the essential services. We've been trying and attempting to bring mobile incubators to try and get some of those babies out, because the people of Gaza are not our enemy. Hamas is, he added. Both Israel and the U.S. claim that Hamas has a command base under Al-Shifa, which Hamas denies. Aid workers say the situation inside Al-Shifa, which is the largest hospital in Gaza and one of the few facilities that remains operational, is there. The Hamas-run health ministry has said there are thousands of people using the complex to shelter from Israeli bombing. Only one of the hospitals in Gaza City and northern Gaza is reportedly still operational and is only working at a minimum level. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said in its latest update on Tuesday. All others have ceased operations due to the lack of power, medical consumables, oxygen, food and water, compounded by bombardment and fighting in their vicinities. Al-Ali Arab Hospital in Gaza City currently houses over 500 patients and is reportedly the sole medical facility able to admit patients in the north. However, it is also facing increasing shortages and challenges. According to the World Health Organization, more than half of the hospitals in Gaza, 22 out of 36, are unable to function due to a lack of fuel, damage, attacks and insecurity. It has warned that the evacuation of hospitals in the north, as demanded by the Israeli military, would be a death sentence for some, as operational hospitals in the south cannot admit more patients. The Israel Defense Forces earlier confirmed it was carrying out precise and targeted operations against Hamas in a specified area in the Al-Shifa hospital based on intelligence information. In a post on X, the IDF also added that it has publicly warned time and again that Hamas' continued military use of the Al-Shifa hospital jeopardizes its protected status under international law and enabled ample time to stop this unlawful abuse of the hospital. Al-Shifa is the largest hospital in Gaza, and both Israel and the U.S. claim that Hamas has a command base under it, which Hamas denies. The statements also called on all Hamas terrorists present in the hospital to surrender, while reiterating that the IDF had facilitated wide-scale evacuations of the complex. Aid workers say the situation inside Al-Shifa is there, and the Hamas-run health ministry says there are thousands of people using the complex as shelter from Israeli bombing. The facility is also running out of fuel, officials say, which has made it near impossible for staff to help patients in need of emergency care. That includes a premature baby said by doctors to have been taken off incubators due to power cuts. Earlier, one doctor told the press that about 200 people had been buried in a mass grave at Al-Shifa after decomposing corpses piled up in the hospital complex. You're watching the International News on Atlantic Television Network. We'll be International news, everyone. The lives of 40 Indian laborers who have been trapped in a tunnel for more than 72 hours are hanging in the balance as authorities try to rescue them. The workers were building the tunnel in northern Uttarakhand state when a part of it caved in due to a landslide on Sunday. State and federal rescue teams have been using a massive drill to push through the debris to reach the men. Officials have been able to establish contact with the workers. Now authorities are bringing fresh and more sophisticated drilling equipment from Delhi to speed up the rescue operations, they told the press. The machine will be airlifted to the Himalayan town of Uttarkashi by the Indian Air Force on Wednesday. The workers are trapped some 200 meters into the tunnel and none of them are injured, officials said. Rescuers have been providing the men with food, water and oxygen through pipes for the last 72 hours. But it is still not clear how much longer it will take to bring them out of danger. The rescue operations are ongoing round the clock. Each day we are making every effort to bring the men out. Karamveer Singh, who is part of the team heading the effort, told the press. On Tuesday, the state government had decided to drill and insert a metal pipe of 900 millimeters diameter through the debris to reach the workers. The workers could then squeeze through the pipe to safety. It was assessed, but the pace of drilling was slowed down because of natural obstacles, making it difficult for the rescuers to reach them, said Ashok Kumar, the Director General of Uttarakhand Police. Mr. Kumar said the rescue efforts were underway on a war footing and would speed up again once the new equipment arrives. We are confident we will save the men, but until then, we have to be patient and keep faith. Sri Lanka's top court has ruled that ex-President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his brother Mahinda were among 13 former leaders responsible for the country's worst ever financial crisis. Their actions, omissions, and conduct sparked the crisis that the ruling noted. In 2022, inflation surged as foreign reserves emptied and the country ran out of fuel, food, and medicine. The crisis sparked months of huge public protests that eventually toppled Mr. Rajapaksa. He then fled the country but returned in September 2022 after a new government supported by his party restarted negotiations with the International Monetary Fund for a bailout, while Tuesday's verdict carries no penalty apart from an order to pay the petitioner's legal fees. Experts tell press that it could open the door for other lawsuits. The case was filed by corruption watchdog Transparency International, Sri Lanka and other activists. The verdict was a 4-1 split, with the majority agreeing on the economy. Former Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa and 2 ex-central bank governors were among the 11 other officials who were held responsible alongside the Rajapaksa brothers. Respondents cannot shrink responsibility by merely stating the decisions they took were policy decisions. It was within full power of respondents to prevent such calamity as they had full knowledge, Transparency International Sri Lanka said in a statement. It is clear that they did not act and take all measures to remedy the situation in the public interest. Finland's Prime Minister has accused Russia of helping migrants get into the country illegally, saying some have been helped by Russian border guards. Finnish officials say migrants arrive by car, being cycling across the border in small groups to claim asylum. Finland shares a 1,340-kilometer border with Russia. Europe's longest landscape. The number of crossings remains small but has been rising this week. Border guards say they have registered around 89 crossings in 2 days. That compares with 91 in the 4 months to 12 November. Marti Pikaniti, a colonel in the Finnish border guard, said the migrants included citizens of countries including Iraq, Yemen, and Syria who had arrived legally in Russia but were not authorized to enter Finland, which is an EU member state. Traditionally, Russian guards haven't allowed people to arrive at the Finnish border without proper documents, he said. But he added Russian authorities had definitely changed their policy in recent months. Many of the migrants are crossing into Finland by bicycle, exploiting an agreement allowing cycling across the border. Last week, Finland banned the crossings by bike. Most of the activities has been seen around the border crossings at the Nuijama and Valinmaa in southeastern Finland. At a news conference on Tuesday, Prime Minister Petteri Orpo accused Russian authorities of facilitating the illegal crossings. It is clear that these people are helped and they are also being escorted or transported to the border by border guards, Mr. Orpo said. In 2021, thousands of migrants from Middle Eastern and African countries crossed into EU member states, Poland and Lithuania, after flying in Belarus, a close Russian ally. The EU at the time accused Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko of using migration as a weapon of hybrid warfare to destabilize the bloc. A Canadian jury has heard closing arguments in the case of a man accused of murdering 4 members of a Muslim family with his vehicle. Nathaniel Vetman, 22, faces 4 first-degree murder charges and 1 count of attempted murder. Mr. Vetman also faces terrorism counts, with prosecutors arguing that he targeted the Afzal family because of their faith. Both the defense and the prosecutors agreed that Mr. Vetman was behind the wheel. But Mr. Vetman has pleaded not guilty, arguing that he was in a dreamlike state on 6 June 2021, the day he allegedly ran over 3 generations of the Afzal family in London, Ontario, while they were out for an evening walk. Salman Afzal, 46, and his wife Madiha Salman, 44, were killed in the attack along with their daughter Yuman Afzal, 15, and Mr. Afzal's mother Talat Afzal, 74. The couple's 9-year-old son was seriously hurt but survived. The case marks the first time a jury in Canada is hearing legal arguments on terrorism related to white supremacy. The jury will not only have to decide on whether Mr. Vetman is guilty of murder, but also whether his actions can be described as terrorism. Closing arguments were made on Tuesday in the Windsor, Ontario court after 10 weeks of proceedings. Testifying his own defense, Mr. Vetman told the jury during the trial he ingested a large quantity of magic mushrooms about 40 hours before the crash. He admitted that the thought of running over Muslims came to him twice after taking the drug, but he resisted. Then, while out for food, he said he saw the family and could not stop the urge. Evangelicals driven Republican support for Israel has been near monolithic since the 7th October attack by Hamas. Conservatives argue the U.S. is backing a close ally, standing up for the region's only democracy and sending a message that terror against civilians will not be tolerated. But there is more to it than that. Evangelical conservatives are a key part of the Republican Party's coalition, and these region's religious voters and politicians have a connection to the state of Israel that runs deep. George Washington University religious scholar Christopher Robertson says there is a stronger sense within evangelicalism that the Jewish people are God's people, and there is a theological assumption that that's pretty pervasive within certain segments of evangelicalism, that the establishment of the modern state of Israel has a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. The new Republican Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, has strong evangelical ties. The Louisiana congressman was one of the handful of politicians who addressed a crowd of 10,000 at the March for Israel event in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. Quoting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he called the conflict between Israel and Hamas a fight between good and evil, between light and darkness, between civilization and barbarism. He said demands for an Israeli ceasefire in Gaza were outrageous. It is my hope that this gathering today serves as a reminder to the entire world, but also to those within our own borders, that the United States stands proudly with Israel and Jewish people forever. The Deputy Consul General of Israel in New York has spoken to press about the current military operation at Al-Shifa. Sak Assar was asked what exactly a precise and targeted operation at Al-Shifa against Hamas meant. He said it means that we are doing everything we can to dismantle the capabilities of Hamas. He said, adding that Hamas had embedded its fighters and capabilities and weapons in and under the Shifa hospital. And by the way, it's not the only hospital where they did it. Everything we can means that we take the weapons, that we dismantle their fighters, their terrorists, while making sure that we minimize the collateral damage, the loss of innocent civilian lives. He was also questioned if Israel had properly made efforts to evacuate the hospital in advance. We take every measure that is possible, he answered, going on to say. But unfortunately, Hamas uses their own people as human shields, preventing them from leaving this hospital. The US has also said it has its own intelligence that Hamas has a command and control center underneath Al-Shifa, a claim Hamas has consistently denied. A man accused of a hammer attack on ex-House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband has tearfully testified how he hatched a bizarre plot to end U.S. corruption after becoming absorbed in conspiracy theories. David DePape, 43, has pleaded not guilty to 2 charges, including attempted kidnap of a federal official. If convicted, he faces life in prison. He told the court he used to have left-wing political beliefs before reading a YouTube comment about Donald Trump. Closing arguments in the trial are expected on Wednesday, giving evidence for more than an hour on Tuesday. Mr. DePape said his political transformation started when he was living in a garage without a toilet or shower, playing video games for hours at a time. He said that in the course of looking up information about video games, he became interested in Gamergate, an anti-feminist campaign that targeted prominent women in the gaming world and became a huge online trend starting in 2014. He began listening to right-wing podcasters and watching political YouTube videos. At that time, I was biased against Trump, Mr. DePape said. But there is like truth there. So if there is truth out there that I don't know, I want to know it, he said. He said he formulated a grand plan that involved luring targets to the Pelosi home. The number of Venezuelans illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border has nearly halved since the deportation fight restarted last month. Statistics from Customs and Border Patrol indicate a 46% drop in such arrivals. In early October, U.S. President Joe Biden's government announced it would deport Venezuelans who were ineligible for asylum or temporary illegal status. More than 7 million people have fled Venezuela in recent years. According to the CBP figures released on Tuesday, border agents apprehended 29,637 Venezuelans at the border last month, a sharp drop from September's record high of 58,833. Overall illegal entries along the southern border also decreased in October by 14% from nearly 219,000 in September. On 18 October, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement began deportation flights to Venezuela. Since then, hundreds of Venezuelans have been sent home. According to CBP Commissioner Troy Miller, said the resumption of removal of flights consistent with delivering consequences for those who cross the border unlawfully had contributed to the dramatic decline of Venezuelan illegal migrant detentions. In September, the U.S. also said that about 472,000 Venezuelans would be eligible for temporary protected status for a period of 18 months. Those granted TPS status are eligible to work while they wait for the asylum cases to be heard. The influx of Venezuelan migrants into U.S. cities such as New York, Denver, and Chicago has become a politically contentious issue, with even some Democratic elected officials criticizing the Biden administration for its handling of the issue. The death of Mexico's first openly non-binary member of the judiciary, a prominent LGBTQ plus activist, appears to have been murder, officials say. Jesus Osio Bane was found dead at his home next to his partner, Dorian Daniel Nieves, in the central city of Aguascalientes on Monday. A razor blade was found at the scene, and the authorities say there was no sign a third person had been present. The now suspect Bane was killed by Nieves, who then took their own life. Aguascalientes Chief Prosecutor Jesus Figueroa said Bane had been found with 20 wounds on their body, including one on their neck that was probably the cause of the death. Forensic evidence suggested Nieves had wielded the murder weapon, Mr. Figueroa added. However, he stressed that the investigation was ongoing, so no definitive conclusions could yet be made. Bane's family disputed the authorities' hypothesis. The father, Juan Bane, said it would be a shame to let this justice system make a judgment that is not correct and that the majority do not believe it. Rights organizations have called on the authorities to investigate whether the deaths were a hate crime and said Bane had received death threats. The 38-year-old became a magistrate for the Aguascalientes State Electoral Court in October 2022 and was thought to be the first non-binary person in Latin America to take up a judicial position. In June, they were among the first group of people to be issued gender-neutral passports. Barnes' purpose was to promote the people of the LGBTQ community who supported him throughout his struggle, achieving a powerful message of inclusion and equality in our state and our country, fellow magistrate Laura Hortensia Leama said at the tribute held at the headquarters of the Aguascalientes Electoral Court. She said, "We will never forget Barnes' essence, persistence, and desire to achieve a better world." These sentiments were echoed by thousands of people who attended vigils and demonstrations in several cities, including the capital for the slain activists on Monday evening. Heat waves prompts a red alert issued for 3,000 town cities. Red alerts have been issued for almost 3,000 towns and cities across Brazil, which have been experiencing an unprecedented heat wave. Records have been broken in areas including the city Rio de Janeiro, where temperatures fell as high as 52.5 C. More than 100 million people have been affected by the heat, which is expected to last until at least Friday. Officials have attributed it to El Nino phenomenon and climate change. The city of Sao Paulo saw average temperatures of 37.3 C on Tuesday afternoon, the National Institute of Meteorology, or INMET, reported. INMET had issued a red alert for a large part of the country. These indicate that temperatures may be 5 centigrades above average for longer than 5 days and could pose a serious danger to health. The heat wave, which comes more than a month before the beginning of summer in the southern hemisphere, has seen Brazil's energy consumption soar to record levels as people try to keep themselves cool. INMET research released last week showed that the average temperature in the country had been above the historical average from July to October. Extreme weather is becoming more frequent and more intense in many places around the world because of climate change. According to scientists, heat waves are becoming longer and more intense in many places, and this is expected to continue whilst humans keep releasing planet-warming greenhouse gases. Meanwhile, the Earth is currently in an El Nino weather phase, a weather during which time global temperatures typically increase. This is watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. An Australian poker machine giant has recorded a $1.3 billion profit by aggressively expanding its presence in the United States and shifting its focus to mobile video games and social casinos. Aristocrat Leisure reported that the profit for the 12 months currency changes. The company was also hoping to capitalize on legislation of the online gambling in many U.S. states. Aristocrat's revenue increased to $6.3 billion, a 13% jump attributed in part of the exceptional gaming results in the U.S., where it sells the vast majority of its machines. But the company's mobile gaming division, Pixel United, which produces games like Cashman Casino and Hearts of Vegas, now account for 42% of that revenue. Pixel United mobile games accounted for 6 of the top 100 games in the U.S. across multiple genres. Although the global mobile games market declined by 5% over the year, the company had said. These games include so-called social casinos such as Jackpot Magic Slots and Big Fish Casino, which require users to buy coins to keep virtual wheels spinning but do not allow for cash to be withdrawn. In Australia, these games will soon be restricted to those aged over 18 but do not count as gambling and are less regulated. The role-playing fantasy game Raid Shadow Legends, which was developed by an Aristocrat subsidiary Plarium Games, accounted for roughly a quarter of Pixel United's revenue last year. Aristocrat, the world's largest poker machine manufacturer, is also hoping to cash in on a booming online gambling sector in the U.S. Online gambling is now legal in 7 states, according to the company's latest reports, which said more states are expected to relax the laws in coming years. The Puteketeke has been crowned New Zealand's Bird of the Century after U.S. talk show host John Oliver's controversial intervention in the poll. Oliver sparked a global frenzy with an alarmingly aggressive campaign for the vulnerable crested grebe. Fewer than 30,000 of the native birds are estimated to remain in the wild. The Bird of the Year contest has run for almost 2 decades, but this year's special poll attracted a record number of votes. More than 350,000 ballots were cast from almost 200 countries, crashing the voting verification system and delaying the result by 2 days. Congratulations to campaign manager John Oliver and all those who gave their support to the Puteketeke. New Zealand's incoming Prime Minister Christopher Luxon wrote on X. The Puteketeke had been an outside contender, according to Nicola Toki from Forest and Bird, the environmental conservation organization which runs the contest. But it was catapulted to the top spot thanks to its unique looks, adorable parenting style, and propensity for poking. It was those qualities that won over Oliver, host of the HBO show last week night. They are word-poking birds with colorful mullets. What's not to love here? Oliver said on his show last week when launching the Lakes Birds campaign. Oliver, who holds British and US citizenry, later turned up on fellow comedian Jimmy Fallon's chat show clad in a giant feathered Puteketeke costume. And that's the international news for today. But before we go, stories. Malian army seizes Kidal, displaces Tuareg rebels. Israeli forces sail out Shifa hospital is central to Hamas. 40 workers still trapped in tunnel 72 hours after collapse. Officials accuse Russia for influx of illegal migrants. Suspect claims conspiracy theories made him attack Pelosi's husband. Jury hears closing arguments of alleged murderer of Muslims. I'm Vivian Douglas. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on a social media platform. On X, we're Atlantic TV Net. On Instagram and TikTok, we're Atlantic TV Network 1. On Facebook and YouTube, we're Atlantic Television Network. Remember that you can watch us live on Atlantic Television Network.tv, or you can download our app on ATN Live from the App Store. You can also watch us live on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network. Do remember that peace and unity remains a pathway to progress. Good afternoon.